Hey, what's up? I'm a diagnosed narcissist. Somebody left a comment on one of my videos basically asking me about the whole hierarchy thing that I believe in, so I thought I would, expand a bit further on that. I'm sure in a lot of videos I've already more or less gotten to that entire thing, but I guess I strictly wanted to make this video to focus on, this hierarchy itself that I keep talking about. And I had some thoughts about, entitlement as well because oh, you're a narcissist. They say, oh my gosh, we always have this sense of entitlement. Although honestly, I guess it's still a wrestle for me in terms of thinking, oh, I view the world this way or I think this way because of my disorder versus, oh my gosh, all of you are just so stupid and ignorant and you refuse to see the truth that is clearly right in front of our eyes that I'm willing to just, accept and acknowledge. So, okay, I believe, yes, we live in a world where everything is hierarchical. Somebody always calls the shots. There's no such thing as, I guess to put it bluntly, there's no such thing as equality in a relationship. I believe when there's a pairing of two people, somebody naturally calls the shots. Somebody's naturally better at, let's say, making arguments, pleading their case, and the other person will essentially have no choice but to either submit to what that other person wants or simply break it off and then, go away in a lot of cases. Now, am I saying that it's always just the one person that's, what I'm saying, typically better at making cases and arguments to persuade the other person? No, of course not. Of course, in certain instances, perhaps the other person is better at, you know, proving their point or their case for certain instances and in certain contexts, situations, whatever. But here's the thing. That's also what I'm saying. It's only in certain cases and certain situations. The person that typically is better at, proving their point, blah, blah, this and that, will naturally get the other person to submit. And that is simply being in a partnership in terms of, okay, who is making this happen? All the questions that you can think of, I entertain. Who's the one that's willing to just walk away? Who's the one more desperate to sort of keep it? All these things that might be uncomfortable for people to just think about on the spot. I'm always focusing on it. Whenever I see and witness relationships, my own or otherwise other people's relationships and stuff like that, I notice. I pay attention to who naturally follows what somebody says. For example, when you enter a room, if I don't know, let's say there's a party and you notice all the little cliques and groups and whatnot, obviously we pay attention, let's say, to the people that are naturally drawing that crowd, who's giving all the things that people are fucking saying. Hell, this is YouTube essentially. Who has the most subscribers? Who has the most views? Blah, 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 this and that. They get the most clicks, and I don't see the real world, the world outside of the internet, because oh, we should fucking touch grass, right? So okay, I'll acknowledge that part too. When we go out there and fucking touch grass, it's no different. People in so many groups and dynamics naturally lead things about or call the shots, yada yada yada. But then what I've noticed about a lot of people is that they have to maintain this illusion of compromising or this illusion of equality and whatnot. And it's simply not true. And I think I've said this before in another video, so I'm pretty sure I'm just regurgitating myself here in a lot of cases. But yeah, because I'm tackling this specific thing here in terms of the hierarchy rather than I don't know, anything else that I might have spoken about in other videos where I just casually drop, oh, we just exist in this hierarchical world and whatnot. Yeah, I'll say this again. We could hypothetically list down all the times someone called something and then the other person was oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Even if it's not a, oh, yeah, this prove your point, prove your case sort of I don't know, confrontational sort of situation. Even in, I don't know, let's say a friend group. Who's the person usually calling the plans of what they're gonna do? Where you guys are gonna eat, let's say. What movie are you guys gonna watch? Because a lot of times in a lot of group dynamics, it doesn't even necessarily have to be negative or let's say difficult situations arise in terms of, okay, what must we do, blah blah blah. It's even with things that are, let's say, enjoyable and fun, yeah, you can tell essentially They're like, this is how it is. Oh, so and so wants to see this, spread it to, friend number 2, number 3, number 4, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And then naturally, a lot of times they'll agree, because typically there is always uh, even unspoken leader that's appointed in like a lot of like those like situations. And think about all the cases where, let's say, some people stop being friends because maybe the social glue of that group like left and then kind of broke apart. And don't get me wrong, I acknowledge that maybe some people get closer, like, oh my gosh, our group kind of shattered, but me and so decide to, but like, even if it's something like that, that to me speaks that, like, okay, there's always a level, a hierarchy of like the bonds that like people share with each other. And I guess nobody likes to necessarily talk about it out loud because like it makes them feel uncomfortable, or people have this idea of like, oh my gosh, it's dehumanizing, you can't talk about people like they're this like science experiment, blah blah blah, whatever. But I mean, isn't that what sociology is, like essentially? Like, we're studying how like humans like interact and like whatnot. So the way I see it, like, we essentially are caged animals, and everybody is always conducting their own little studies and experiments like all the time, even if they don't realize it. Like, every single time you talk to somebody, even if you're not trying to manipulate them, because that's always such a negative thing to like a lot of people, even though I believe that's what we're all like naturally doing, every single person we know or that like we choose to associate with, or even just the idea of somebody that we don't want to associate with, like, I don't want to be with insert this kind of person, we're creating psychological profiles all the time about that person. And it's weird to me because this to me is so obvious, but it's like when you say these things out loud, people get so uncomfortable, because it's like, I guess it gives an uncanny valley feeling where it's like, oh my gosh, you're going like off the script, because to like a lot of people, they just want things to like run smoothly because they already have this like built-in script. But I'm just like, no, I see it. Like, and if you want to say, oh my gosh, it's like puppeteering, everybody's like on a string or something, well, I mean, yeah, that's how it works. That's how it works essentially. Or I believe, yes, people are with each other because we give each other this like sense of like validation. Oh, you support my ideas. Oh, you're just like me. Oh, there's like a relatability thing. Or even when people are like, oh, I can accept people that are different than me, I'm just like, shut the fuck up. There's always a limit to a certain extent, because the way I see like values and like things like that, they all act as like filters for the kind of people that like we think we deserve. Oh my gosh, I'd never be with a Republican, a liberal, a fucking Jesus freak, or like a non-religious heathen that's a sinner, or whatever, all this kind of things. It's like, we all form our tiny little groups and cliques, and everybody's wired to, I guess, just like, sort and filter out like all these relationships that like, people are dealing with. And then, okay, and I'm gonna circle back finally to the whole like thing where it's like, oh my gosh, narcissists are like filled with like so much entitlement or like whatever. I'm just like, yeah, I can admit that, but like, why can't you? Because I believe the only reason you won't ever feel like you're entitled is because you have confirmation bias. If a narcissist, or let's say anybody that's like strange or weird, is out of the group, nobody has to acknowledge their entitlement. Because like, in my eyes, okay, what is the simplest definition of like entitlement essentially? You want things a certain way. Or when I think of entitlement, I simply think of like, what is a person's particular expectations that like, they think they deserve. And kind of like with like all the things that like I've already covered, all of us as a species, we do this. Like, unless you're some sort of like hermit living in the woods, like you wouldn't even be watching this video, because like for example, let's say you don't go on the fucking internet because you're truly just like alone or something. You are entitled as well. But the privilege that you have as somebody that's, let's say, like normal, is that like you don't have to acknowledge it, because you have expectations too. We live in this society, right? So we have like ideas of how people ought to behave, how people ought to treat each other. And most like what's it they say, like birds of the same feather like flock together. For example, that's why we have places where it's more common to believe in this religion. We have places where it's more so common to have this certain political view or that certain political view on the fucking spectrum of like, that whole thing. So we all have these expectations and like this like sense of like entitlement. And the only reason people don't like it is because, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, it creates like conflict or something. But it's like, that's what I'm saying. That's just how much of like hypocrites we are. Because if people, the way I see it, want to come after narcissists and be like, oh, you're so entitled, yada, 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 this and this and that. Okay, let me ask you this then. If I placed you in a select group of people that didn't hold the same values that you do, which I imagine you get a lot from the people that you think are, oh my gosh, the non-narcissists that are normal people that don't do anything to like disrupt society because, oh my gosh, it's only the narcissists. And let's just say the whole cluster B like, you know, thing in general, narcissist, BPD, ASPD, histrionic, like all that kind of stuff. Like, it's only we that are quote unquote like problematic, but it's just like, I mean, fuck off. Like, I honestly believe that like as a species, all we're trying to essentially do is dominate. And you're free to be a dumb fucking idiot that thinks everybody's getting along when you get your way. Because as long as you don't have to fight for your cause, as long as you don't have to like prove something, you get to be entitled as much as you want. Because you never have to question yourself. Because everyone else around you that, let's say, hypothetically shares those same values and like perspectives, you can all be entitled together. And then that gives you your fucking dumbass high school brain to pick on the nerd, the loser, whatever. But like, fuck all of you. We're hypocrites. And I truly believe that like we're all entitled. I mean, I acknowledge I still have my disorder because kind of like what I said again, I wrestle with the whole like like I think this way because, you know, I have this disorder versus everyone else is just like stupid. But okay, strictly speaking, in the perspective like of my disorder, all of you are just fucking stupid ass hypocrites. And you contribute to this hierarchy just as much as I do. Just as much as, let's say, any narcissistic or any sort of like problematic sort of like person, you would not have any sense, I bet, of who you are if it weren't for any of these people that like you deem problematic. Because if you're surrounded by people, and I'll keep saying this, that like pretty much agree with you, you're all free to act like dumb fucking NPC sheeps that don't have to worry about anything. And yeah, being an NPC is so much more of a simplistic, easy life, isn't it? It's so great to be normal. But you know what? I see hypocrisy everywhere. And I think we're all entitled. But okay, if you think I'm the only one that's entitled, that's my explanation. You clicked on the fucking video, so here it is. Entitlement, expectations, the hierarchy, essentially. Okay, yeah, all those things. What I'm trying to say, yeah, I believe they're like all essentially linked, and these are the components that make out the human species. And I'll continue to look at history and all the ways that people are fighting up until now still, technically, and I'll just eye roll at it because our species is literally fucking like wow, we are garbage.